All right. Good evening, everyone in the radio land. You tune into One Place, One Voice. It's where Liberia meet other nationalities around the continent of Africa to promote peace, love, and unity. Tonight is a special edition for One Place, One Voice. We have a very special guest in the studio tonight. We're going to be discussing African global affairs with Serge Demefack from New Jersey. You can feel free to call in anytime you want to ask any question. But before I bring my guest in tonight, I just want to take this intro break. Right after that break, my guest, Serge, will be coming in to introduce himself. So stay tuned. Again, you tune into One Place One Voice. It's where Liberia meet other nationalities around the continent of Africa to promote peace, love, and unity. Tonight, we got a very fine gentleman. Tonight, I want to let you know, audience, we want to firstly welcome Sam Woyu and Kadi Kundabe. We say welcome to the studio, One Place One Voice. So tonight with me, I got our honorable guest. I also want to welcome Sarah Kakula. We say welcome to the studio, One Place One Voice. Is where Liberia meet other nationalities around the continent of Africa to promote peace, love, and unity. Tonight, discussion going to be on African global affairs with Serge Demefack from New Jersey. A very awesome brother. I'll let you know that this brother is very well informed. So tonight he's going to be giving some information that going on in our global community, also domestic and internationals. But before we go ahead tonight, we want to call Serge Demefack to give an introduction. Serge, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Very good.
Thank you for having me.
Can you introduce yourself to the audience, please? Thank you.
Yes, my name is Serges Demefack. I am originally from Cameroon and West or Central Africa. Um, and I live in New Jersey. I define myself as a Pan-Africanist. And I believe that all Africans must see themselves as one people. And wherever you live, we must believe that together we form one global community, what I like to call the global African community, with all our brothers and sisters around the world.
Wow. Serge, we want to say thank you so much for that powerful introduction. You know what I mean? I mean, it is a pleasure tonight, to host you into the studio that is well known all around the world. So thank you so much for being in the studio tonight. But we're just going to ask you the first question here. I want you to tell us a little bit about your community since you've been in America and some of your experience you have for the community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've been in the United States for about 20 years now. We don't see the time going by, but when you look back and you see, the path of your life, lay bare in front of you, So you know, being originally from Cameroon, I did not have the opportunity to go to discover Africa while I was in Cameroon. And I believe with the experience of many Africans, we don't really have a lot of opportunities to travel across Africa because we live in states that are basically built around the borders, and when you are lucky to live within in a state that has the opportunity to communicate with the neighboring states, it's easy to flow through. But coming from Central Africa, it wasn't easy for me to go from. It wasn't easy for many of my countrymen to go from, let's say, Cameroon to Gabon, or to go from Cameroon to Nigeria, because you have a lot of policing, cross-boundary policing from either countries, and every country try to protect their borders. And I got the chance to discover, a lot of African communities only when I was in America. And then I had the opportunity to travel and go to many different African communities, many different African countries for work, because at the time I worked as a consultant for on different issues covering immigration and other government issues in our African countries. And I learned a lot about these different countries. And so when I returned to the United States every time, I made an effort to learn more about the people from the country that I visited that live in America. So it's been an ongoing learning process, and that's why I reached the conclusion that I see myself as as a member of the global African community because Africans are everywhere. I don't define myself as an African who lives in Africa, but as an African who's going about his business around the world. And I don't consider myself an American, even though I've lived here for more than almost 20 years. I continue to see myself as an African. I think my children who are born in America, you know, see themselves as African, even though they were born in America. Because for me, it's an identity. It's not something that you can just, have that disappear because of the sake of the nationalities that we carry here and there.
Wow. This is so awesome, just, just sitting down, listening to your story, how you kind of migrated, from one place to another, coming to the great America, it's an awesome thing, We all have such a wonderful background. Like myself, came from Liberia, West Africa, came to the great United States of America and try to make my way through, But I mean, I phoned you at the time, when we had the African Immigrant, Commission. We had a very beautiful meeting. That's where I actually knew the kind of person you are, when you begin to discuss some very important thing, and that's one of the reasons why, our studio chose you to be one of the best candidates to come into the studio and speak to your people because we believe that you are very intellectual and we also believe that you understand your community, so we are very grateful. I mean, to have you into the studio tonight. But looking at the current situation, I mean, where you live in New Jersey, or coming down to New York, or other places you have gone, what's your take? I mean, the current situation in our community, because I mean, here we are. We live in the diaspora. We work very hard, and we pay tax. As one of my sister came last night in the studio, and she said something. She said the media portray us, our image different out there. So when I heard from her last night, I was like, you know what? I think I need to throw this question to Serge. He might have information on this. So how can you address the fact that the media is throwing our image negative out there? What would be your advice to your community? Thank you.
Well, that's a very complex question. When you're a part of an immigrant community, you have to expect that things are not going to be easy for you wherever you arrive. And in an area where, everything is so designed to fit, sound bites for our medias. Most media, especially in the West, they are not really going out there and trying to give a full-fledged reporting about how the community is living. Um, we live in a society where media is at the center of almost everything. We consume it on our TV at home, on our devices, on our cell phones, on our iPads. I mean, and so, and we are also very much familiar with all the memes that we consume out there that are shared across platforms and from our friends. And as a matter of fact, right now we're using one of those medias. So, um, in the area that's I would say over mediated, we need to be very careful about the media that we consume. And I myself, you know, I limit very much the amount of time of exposure to media that my kids have. I don't go out there buying all the cables that are available on the market. I think I try to really limit myself to something that's really necessary for my kid education. They will not be going through all the crazy channels that are out there and talking about other people's personal lives as activities, as programs. I want to make sure that I myself, I expose myself to media that are informed. For example, I before I leave my house in the morning, I try to check for some very classic, even if they are Western, very classic. I listen to NPR, which gives me some basic information in the morning from the area where I live. I may also listen to BBC. I can check also some local media from Africa, let's say Africa number one. I can listen a little bit to WBAI, maybe late at night. I listen to a variety of shows where, I think that they're actually discussing something with substance. And, I also acknowledge that there are many different um, news sources out there that are not doing good for the African people. And that's why, we have a president today who believes that, Africans are worth nothing. And this is a president that basically is spending his time watching, a certain kind of media, some special channels that we all know, whatever they say about our people is never, to bring us up. It's always to push us down. And we need to be resilient. And we also need to start developing our own media, our own media sources. We cannot rely on someone's media to tell our story. And that's very important for all the Africans. I'm happy to be using right now a media that's run by an African brother, and I think it matters to me. At least for that's my value. I don't want someone else to go out there and tell my story. And if you go down to history, the story of black people has never been told completely because it is told from the standpoint of, let's say, the colonizer, the imperialist. And we need to be able to own our own media. Today, you could see how, for example, the Russian government has put their own media out there. The RTTV that you see out there all the time, that's Russia. The Qataris have their own media, and we are Africans, and Chinese have their own media. As a matter of fact, they have their own internet, just to make sure they control whatever story is told about them. If you want to tell something about them that's out there, yes, it's in your corner, but they want to control their own narrative. And I think Africans should be able to control their own narrative. They should be able to tell their own stories, not just listen to their stories being told by someone else. So, and that's very important if you want to control the message.
Wow. That is so amazing. I mean, it's like I'm trying to listen to you, and I love the way you connected it out. Tonight you said you feel very proud to speak on an African media. Yeah, I love that. I think that one of the reasons why Akon said, and I always quote him, he said, we should try to sell our own story because when we allow people to sell our story for us, then of course sometimes we become to have problem because why it is they're going to sell our story the way they want to sell it. So I hope that sister is online listening this evening and that our brother give the kind of awesome feedback towards the questions you were asking last night. And you are right, Mr. Serge. I really thank you so much, for your contribution, towards, your community. You're working so hard, and that's one of the reasons why we have you here as an awesome brother. Mr. Fufana Ahmed Behad Mohammed said, for sure. Oh yes, brother. Welcome to the studio, One Place, One Voice. There's your brother Serge in the studio tonight, discussing on our African community, how we can also come together, try to say our own story. He also said, fat. He said fat to you, Serge. So that's good. Thank you so much, brother. Very appreciate our posting and our contribution towards the topic. Thank you so much, brother. But let me ask you a question here. So, before we go international, because I want to pick one African, we want to welcome Nathaniel Codis in Koba. We say welcome to the studio, One Play One Voice. Tonight we got our special guest. His name is Serge. He's in the studio tonight with us. So again, welcome. Before we go to the international, I want to pick one country from the face of Africa. That will be my own country where I'm from, the country of my origin, Liberia. But before I come to that question, let me ask you a question, Brother Serge. I mean, as you see our community, I often hear people say our community is divided. Brothers and sisters do not really try to protect one another or support one another. What your take on that? Thank you.
Are you talking specifically about the Liberian community or just the African community as a whole?
Well, for now, it's the African community as a whole. I always hear people do not, hold together, come together. Even though my Liberian community, I know our own problem that we have, but let's speak universal. Let's speak on the global scales. So let's speak on the African community as a whole. What are some of the causes, and what can we do to fix that?
Well, the African community is not just divided today. If you go back to the Berlin Conference of 1884, that's where Africa was basically divided like a cake without any African at the table. So, that's where Africa was effectively divided. There was not one single representative of Africa at that table. And people sat down, you know, um, on a whim, divided Africa. It is funny when you think about it today. And the same people today are continuing to manipulate our head of states, to control many of the resources that come out of Africa. And some of them are also some of the states there were at the seat. They have some sense of contrition. They're coming back and trying to, to help Africa. But, we also need to distinguish those who genuinely want to help Africa stay united and those who are just there pretending to help Africa, but in fact, positioning themselves to continue to grab, resources out of Africa. But ultimately, our destiny today, in the 21st century belongs to us. It is, we are now setting our own parliament, we are setting our own countries, and we are obviously also contributing to war, and we are obviously also refusing to share the resources with our own people. That's not the fault of someone else. It's not the fault of those who are currently in power. And we need to hold them accountable. They need to do the job of leaders. And so you will say, across Africa, it's a patchwork of things that are half done, things that are in progress, things that need to be completely restarted over. And when I think, for example, a country like Botswana, beautiful country, and they're doing very well. They have a lot of diamonds. They have one of the best healthcare system, in the world, honestly. And then the resources are shared across, across the people. They have one of the best education system. It is an example of a country that's trying to bring itself up. But can that be replicated? Yes, at one condition: we must have the right leaders, because, like they said, the fish rot from the head. So I continue to believe that we Africans must continue to believe that, they have their future in their hands. Every single country is going to go through these periods and then until they find the right leader, because um, the nights cannot last forever. The sun is going to come up at some point. And I think that point, we need to remain optimistic, continue to work hard, not just sit home and languish and continue to think negative. We must be optimistic. And because without the optimism of Africa, we will be nowhere today. You and I wouldn't be here talking today. When I see what, for example, your country, Liberia, went through, and today, people like yourself in your own story, you've gone over, the obstacles and managed to, turn your life around and do something that's, you sharing, your success with people. You set up this platform for us to talk with, you're helping people back home. That's an inspiring story. It's not just for people to share and say it's beautiful. No, it is real. And if you can do that, I'm sure all the head of states across Africa can do that too. So I would say we are divided. Yes, there are certain reasons. There's truth to that, but we must remain optimistic and continue to work towards reuniting Africans, not just Africans who are in Africa, but the global community of Africans, because that's what I like to say. Africans form a global community. They are all over the place. And we must be thinking about that community, not just about those who come directly from the African continent, but those who have been abroad for a very long period of time. They are all our brothers. And with them, we're going to be stronger.
Wow, this is great. We must continue to unite and come together to serve each one another. Wow, this is a awesome, awesome discussion tonight. With our guest from New Jersey, Serge. We really do appreciate you on this network. Our brother here, Fufana, he's saying Sierra Leone has a issue. Please, sir, you need to make a platform for Sierra Leone. Oh, my brother, let me tell you something. Like my brother rightly said, Serge, he said this is a unique platform that was built, by one person voice, because we believe each and every one of us have talent. But the problem here is, what are we doing with our talent while we live in the diaspora? So, like my brother said, this platform is for everyone. Sierra Leone, Malay, Cameroon, Nigeria, Africa, just name it. So brother, yes, indeed, this is Sierra Leone platform, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to build our community. We're trying to say our own story because we know our story, and that's one of the reasons why I invited our special guest tonight, Serge, because we believe in him a lot. He's well informed. He's also working with the African Immigrant Commission. So he has a lot of affairs that are going on, and that's one of the reasons why we touch base with him tonight, because we believe, he can bring information that you need, to take from here. All right, Serge. The next question I'll be asking before, right after the break, will be on Liberia. I know, sometimes it's good to get different perspective. You know what I mean? We discussing with Liberia on an issue. People say George Oponwia is a soccer star. He do not have a political skills to rule the country. He came in the country after 1 year, 16 billion got lost. I mean, there's so much going on. Some people say he built 45 units in 1 year time. I want you to be thinking about those kind of caution, because we want to hear from a very great person from Cameroon. We have different ideas around the continent. You might see something different, and I might see something different. So again, audience, I want you to stay tuned, because right after this break, Serge, our brother, resides in the United States, specifically in New Jersey state, from the continent of Africa, specifically from Cameroon. Tonight, going to be telling us something that he see in Liberia, and some of the concept that he got. Because there is a man that is well international, Oh, he traveled a lot all over the world, so I believe he is well informed. So I want you to stay tuned. Right after this break, we will be bringing him on, and he will tell us what he know about Liberia and maybe how Liberia can come together, or what how we can bring ourselves together to make peace, especially in this kind of a current situation where the economy is crashing. A lot of things is happening in Liberia. Then some people say, there June 7th, there's a big march in Liberia. They want George Weah, to change the way he do things. Some people say the agenda is not working the way it's supposed to be working. So all those things, we're going to find out for our international brother from Cameroon. And his name is Serge. Stay tuned. I want to welcome, in the meantime, I want to welcome Ansu. Tiger, we say welcome to One Place, One Voice. We also want to welcome my own sister, J. Domingo Jokai. That's my dynamic sister. We say welcome to the show tonight. One Place, One Voice. Stay tuned. Right after this break, we will be bringing our brother Serge to answer some current national issue in Liberia. Thank you. All right, again, you are tuned into One Place, One Voice. It's where Liberia meet other nationals around the continent of Africa to promote peace, love, and unity. Tonight, we got a very special guest. We want to welcome Agnes Yeswa. We say welcome to the studio. Tonight, our special guest is Serge. He's originally from Cameroon on the continent of Africa, but he's live from Jersey. I just want you to know. So again, Serge, we are reaching out to you. We know you travel. You are very international man. I travel all over the world, and you have knowledge. I believe some Liberians are on the line. They want to hear from you, and also back home in Africa. How do you see Liberia in this current stage with everything not going on about the 16 billion? He took over. He told the Liberians that they won't be spectator in their own country. But now we see Liberians are crying. They say things are very hard. The economy is getting hard. I mean, the rate is going up. The economic according to the International Monetary Fund, the growth forecast dropped from 4.7 down to 0.4. Serge, 0.4, it is not a good thing. It's not a good economy. As a man who travel international, a man who have gone so many places in the world, what's your take from Liberia current situation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You know, I must start by saying that Liberia has not completed its transition, from the bloody civil war that really, marked the history, the modern history of Liberia. And if someone tells you that that story has already been erased, you should tell them that they need to look at the country. Because if you go to Liberia, you still see buildings, marked with bullet holes, and people who are still trying to catch up with the education, family who are still trying to go back to their normal life. Because the war that happened in Liberia was a big one. And I tell you, Liberia is a small country. Liberia was a beacon of hope and independence. But to be able to see Liberia go down to the path that brought it to its knee, for those who don't understand really what a war does to a country, it destroys the core of every country. To be able to rebuild and make human beings who can think differently, it takes more than a generation. So I would not say the challenges that Liberia are facing today are unique to Liberia. We have across Africa um, a major governance problem. Even if you look at the case of countries like, let's just look at a country like um, Democratic Republic of Congo. Now we know that the war's been over in Congo, but there's still another war happening. People are still dying, on the eastern part of Congo. You still have these diseases coming up. All of that is bad. These epidemics who are coming up and killing people in droves, is as bad as war. Now, if you go back to Liberia, we know that after the war, we had Ebola who came and killed people, right? And that was not because of the war that happened, because we had Ebola also in other neighboring countries, like in Guinea, for instance. So to just reduce the problem of Liberia to one recent president is a little bit too much. I would say yes, there's a crisis of governance. The country needs to build itself, get the right civil servants. And it's going to take time to build that level of morale among the civil servants, have them build a culture of good governance. It doesn't take 10 years. Even with on the Sirleaf, Miss Johnson Sirleaf, the former president, there were still issues, even though she was coming from the World Bank. But she did her best. But the reality is, she is still in the country. Part of her in her government are still part of the new government. And I think she's there. She should also continue to contribute to building the country. And I don't want to conclude that George Weah, is a good. It's like has all the qualifications that are needed. We know George Weah's journey. It was an improbable journey. He went from a soccer player, returning to the country, understanding politics, going back to school, and also returning to power. Obviously, he was not coming to power as someone coming from a very powerful family. This is someone who comes from the street and became a soccer player, and he's trying to build his own base. So if you ask yourself, who are George Weah's friends? That's an important question, to see who are George Weah's friends. Do you see George Weah's friends being the people that he went to, let's say, administration school, to law school together? No. Or someone who's been in part of like one of those old Liberian families who are used to running the country. No, George Weah come out of nowhere and become a president of Liberia. It's a big job, and I would not tell you that George Weah, was 100% prepared to take on that country, because you need someone who saw the country in a position where nothing was able to be achieved in the country. But he is doing his best. But guess what? He cannot control every single person who comes into his administration. The culture of, exploring the state, using the state as a business, grabbing things that belong to the state. These are things that we see across Africa. If you go in Nigeria, it's the same. If you go back in Cameroon, my country of origin, is the same. You go back to Senegal, even though Senegal is one of the biggest democracies of Francophone Africa, you're going to hear those stories of leaders trying to overuse their power to seize, the wealth of the nation. And that's a very important point about all the African countries. And I would say that I'm sure if there are criticisms, Joy Wilson is listening to them. And I know very well. I went online and I saw the 44 villas or 44 townhouses that George Weah built in his country. And from what I understand and from what I've read, they belong to him. Now, I know he was a wealthy soccer player. I don't know much about how, things like that, how much money he has. But if you compare it to some of the things that some of his friends, soccer players could have built, I mean, they were making a lot of money. He was basically running the national team by himself with his own money, renting planes to fly players from national soccer national team. Now, do I believe that he still had that level of money? No. If he didn't build companies to fructify that money, to make that money grow, I doubt that, if he didn't invest that money properly, maybe he did, maybe he did not. That's not an information I have. Uh, but there's definitely one thing that I've seen. Just where, regardless of where this money comes from, he built it in Africa. And there are some Libyans who will have money, whether stolen or their own, that they've earned on their own, who have invested it out of their country of origin. They may have invested in America or in Europe. I'm not saying this to justify his wealth. I'm just saying that, I'm just kind of adding a small twist to how that money is being used. He could have hidden that money out if he had stolen that money. But again, I don't really know much about the source of the money. I mean, there's a lot of wealthy people in Liberia. It's not just George Weah. There are people in Liberia who own big companies, people who are, really take advantage of the demand of the goods, not just in Liberia, but across the region. And so we need to, get down to the facts, something that I don't have. But I do understand that, not everybody in his government, is really, keeping up with the level of demand of the people. The people are still crying. People are seeking for more support, and I can tell you, he cannot achieve that, overnight, even if he has the means, because you still need to make sure you prioritize things. You still need to make sure that you put together a justice system. You build civil servants that can at least be trusted. Then you build the whole system of accountability within the government. After the war, I tell you, many people, are still thinking that Liberia can go down to the wrong path. But people need to move beyond that, especially those who are around the country, and understand that we are in a different area. It's been more than 20 years now. We have to turn the country around and really bring the country back to standard. And that's the big challenge now, to turn the page, ultimately turn the page in terms of the mentality of the people, the mentality of the governance. And these are not things that are easy to change. It's like turning a big ship in the middle of the sea. It takes time to change everything, not just the government, but the people by themselves. We need to make sure that we educate people based on some new norms. Rehabilitation is not over yet in Liberia. I tell you that much. When we've gone through what Liberia went through, it is not easy, to shift things. But I mean, every country has the leader they deserve, and George Weah was elected, by the majority of Liberians. And I think what Liberians can do, even those who are abroad, is to provide him even that expertise that completely left the country during the war. Because I think there are a lot of smart Liberians who don't live in Liberia anymore. And we need to find a way to bring those who are out there. They usually have a big background, they have all sort of qualifications, to go back and help Liberia. Not just to go back, but also to provide the expertise to be brought in. But there needs to be a system allowing them to bring that expertise back to the country. They need to feel that they are welcome back into the country, that they're not just coming there to criticize, they're coming there to build. And building a country, even the South Liberia, is not a small thing. So for me, so it's kind of like a mixed picture, and I think that, with all what's being said, I'm sure the Liberian government is hearing. We also need to remember, governing in Africa is not an easy thing. Criticism are going to fuse from all sides, from your political rivals, to the people that you're trying to please. And it takes time to build, a culture of democracy where people can say what they want to say without being annoying, without just trying to degrade what has been accomplished. But it takes time, and I'm sure, history will judge Mr. George Weah. History is going to judge him because there's something about the leadership, it's only when you leave office that you hear about the real story of your leadership. You cannot get a full picture when you still in the heat of the moment. So it will take time. But I will encourage all Liberians to not stop contributing, not stop bringing the ideas, and to not stop believing that something is possible. It may take time, and they cannot sum the reality of the country on one leader. Liberia has a long story that I'm sure still impacting Liberia, even with George Weah in power. He did miracles, when he was playing soccer, and in politics, it's a different ball game. So I think I'm going to stop it here, but only time will tell.
All right. That was the voice of Serge from Cameroon in the studio live tonight, giving us some update what he see in Liberia and what information he got on that country. Again, you are tuned into One Place, One Voice. It's where Liberia meet other nationals around the continent of Africa to promote peace, love, and unity. We have our audience here, Ansu Tiger. He sent a question to you, Serge. He said, what the issue with Sierra Leone, sir? But before you answer that question, I want to take a musical break. We will be going on the continent of Africa to sing one of the awesome music. It's a new music. It's called Gizi. It's from the artist called Gizi tonight in the studio. So just stay tuned. Right after this music, we will be bringing that question up to Serge from one Ansu Tanga. So Ansu, stand by. Serge will be answering the question, what's the issue with Sierra Leone? I know you're not too specific, but while the music is playing, while on the break, maybe you want to be specific to narrow down the question. When you say issue, what issue are you referring to? All right, so let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our guest tonight, at which time we'll be climaxing the show tonight. Thank you.
Nima kaya memo kaga naka sosi kwaro naka yewe Masamilo KZ Big Neil Lego Yeah naka eso Yeah naka eso Naga gawele ise yide tiano bona tanzia Mine nagato wana ne wako Kopia ikwa naka zunkwa kenule anaka Leli ekene oh na oh ea oh Kono yamba ke gosoke kone kapye we kwemye diwe wase Mane webe
Everything was just okay. Everybody was dancing. I am Baba Ao. Eating there Ao. Nobody would eat me. Everything was just shaking. Saka memo just shaking. The month just shaking. I saw ye. She won't call me GB. She won't show me loving. Yeah, but he happy to love. Everybody says she got you love. They're looking for true love. They have to find true love. You find, baby, you sweet, sweet. Your body ain't tight, tight. They pressing your lip because they want to take you to bed. You better be careful because if you get in the milk, they will never go for the cow. Hey yo, nah, no.
All right, again, you are tuned into One Place, One Voice. It's where Liberia meet other nationalities around the continent of Africa to promote peace, love, and unity. With me tonight, I have my brother on the line from Cameroon, reside in New Jersey, currently. I'm trying to get a question here. What's the issue with Sierra Leone, sir? I don't know what you mean. If you want to call in the studio, the number is 646 220 7781 to be very specific with an issue. I will try to ask our brother Serge, but I don't know if he's going to answer that question because it's so broad. So you might want to call in the studio to narrow it down, or you can post it. All right. But in the meantime, let me just get over to brother Serge. So brother Serge, Ansu Tiger, he asking the question, what is the issue with Sierra Leone? I don't know what he means, but I don't know if you have any take on that.
Well, that's a very broad question. I know Sierra Leone, like many African countries, have a problem with democracy. It's something that at times we need to ask ourselves if the model of governance that the West is asking us to follow, which is the so-called democracy, is actually something that benefits Africa. Something that's it's designed for Africa. Because when you look around Africa, you see that we love each other. We like to do things together. But when it comes down to going to the polling station, it turns sour. We know that in Africa there used to be an old tradition of how, ethnic groups used to live together, how we used to solve our problem, how we used to come together, solve community problems. There was no problems without solutions. And since democracy was basically, imposed to Africa, it's been difficult to see democracy flourish. And when you can look through, go to Egypt, even in South Africa today, after what Nelson Mandela went through with his own country, the question is the model of participation that exists in Africa today is what Africa needs. We've heard some people say that that democracy was given to, especially in the case of French-speaking countries in Africa, by the French president, like the former French president, the late François Mitterrand. And in Sierra Leone, I know that I believe that was earlier this week that the opposition party basically walked out of the parliament. These are, and of course, it's a new culture. We need to learn to live with that. Maybe it's going to take us a lot more time to really understand, how to use those democratic principles. And we know that in many cases, for the case of many African countries, the freedom or the independence was basically handed over to many African countries. Many African countries did not actually fight for their freedom. Especially when you look at, go around Africa. The only Francophone country that fought for its freedom was Cameroon, where there was actually blood shed because people wanted their freedom. But if you look at other Francophone countries, they did not fight for their freedoms. And I also think that, it's an experience that, when you know the cost of freedom, when you know that you went out there and worked hard for that freedom, you probably behave differently. But globally speaking, I think the path for Africans to really adopt that culture of democracy is still very long, because we see Even small parties, when they come to power, no, they are changing the constitution. They are, appointing the friends. It's like, the culture of democracy is yet to really, take root in Africa, and that's something that's going to go through, like I was saying before, through our education. And even like, how do we teach our children that culture in our families? Do we allow democracy to take place in our own families? Before we try to practice it into our parliaments, into our government halls, how are we practicing it within our small communities, within our villages? Because you will see, for example, in many African communities, you see have the culture of kings and queens. But that culture is basically existing next to the culture of elections. So you have that dichotomy of a different governance in the system. For example, in the case of Cameroon, where I come from, the traditional rulers have a role, to help administer the whole territory, the country. But we also know that the traditional rulers, do not obey the self-democratic rules. As a matter of fact, they have more power on their subjects than actually people who are elected in many cases. And that power of traditional rulers is stronger in some part and weaker in other part. It's not homogeneous across the country. And I'm sure these are issues that are also in play in Liberia. And so you have this sort of like a combination of social structures that are really playing big, when you want to put democratic process in play. So it is something that I would say that Africa is still trying to see what's the best way to govern itself, and it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle. Democracy in Africa is going to take a while for that culture to become something that one president cannot destroy it. Well, where if you become president, just going about and changing constitution is not going to happen overnight. But today, we're going to continue to see, constitution being changed, laws being passed because it's going to place this person. And we are lucky to be in America and see the American government, current government, being challenged by district lawyers, by really district courts. And that's something that shows you how resilient the country is. You see, prosecutor challenging the president. And I mean, I tell you, that's when you know that democracy in the country is mature. That people are not just bowing down to the next, leader who comes to power. And this is something that goes beyond just being an elected official or beyond just being, someone who holds a high power, but it's go across the whole education of the community. So, but I mean, again, I'm still waiting for that exact question about Sierra Leone. But I know the struggle in Sierra Leone into accommodate itself into going down into some sort of democratic dialogue. How can you be in a position and really play your role and really use opposition power to advance the country, not just to deny whatever is being done? Because that's what we see in Africa over and over. People in the position, their role is just to deny whatever is being done. And in many cases, they don't provide, solutions. Country. But he's just there to say, well, this government is not doing its job. So we need to go beyond just criticizing, but actually proposing solutions. And to be able to do that as an opposition party with very limited resources, you have to have deep pockets. Running an opposition party is not easy because you need a lot of resources. And people with resources don't want to follow small opposition parties. They want to be with the government where all the power is. And most of the time, that's what happened in Africa, in many African countries. So it's again, it's the same dynamic that we see play out, in many African countries.
Wow. Well, I mean, Serge tried his best to kind of answer the question, even though the question is very broad. So my brother Ansu, if you're there, you want to narrow down your question, that would be cool. But audience, we want to let you know that the line is open now for a question. The time now is 10:14. we want to let you know we're going to give just 5 minute grace period for call. So that means 10:14. By 10:19, we will be closing up for the question if there is no call come in. Then by exact 10:30, we are going to close down the studio. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into One Play One Voice. It's where Liberia Media International around the continent of Africa to promote peace, love, and unity. We believe coming together and uniting ourselves and continue to push our story through, talking to the world, talking to our community, bringing our people together, making them understand how best we can serve our community will make a difference while we live into the diaspora. So with that said, while waiting for the call, I will be bringing a song here in the studio that is going to be playing while waiting for the call. If you have any question for Mr. Serge tonight, Demefack, at 10:19, we will close the call. So please, if you have a call, please call in between 2 to 3 minutes. We're going to hold that for. All right. In the meantime, I'll take this song from PCK from the continent of Liberia. We will be right back.
Fellow, Asia Dr. Beats. There's trap of my eyes. I wish I could say goodbye, but no. Love me enough, but sometimes love comes around and knock you down. You should let me love, baby. You should let me love. I love you. I need you, darling. You took my breath away, baby. Oh. Honey, oh. I want it, I'm a feeling you. I thought you so good. All the things I did say, everything I did do, I won't give up on you. No. All the things I did say, all the things I did do, I won't give up on you. You my baby, oh baby, oh. Dalio, what you call my everything, my baby, I'm talking to you. On Dio, baby, oh. Dalio, what you call my baby, I'm talking to you. I'm that man who will take you to the end, baby. I'm that man you can count on as a friend. I'm that man who is to understand. I told you this love, yeah, it's no friend. I don't care about what they say or do, that they give us space. All the things that they say, everything that they do, I won't give up on you. No. All the things that they say, all the things that they do, I won't give up on you. I won't give up on you, baby, oh. Dalio, my shit all on my everything, my baby, I'm talking to you. On Dio, baby, oh. Dalio, my shit all on, baby, I'm talking to you. Anyway, baby, oh. I don't know you, but baby, you run top of my mouth. I'll take you far away, me and you up here. I know one day I'll be me and you. All the things that they say, everything that they do, I won't give up on you. No.
All right, again, we are tuned into One Place, One Voice. It's where Liberia meet other nationalities around the continent of Africa to promote peace, love, and unity. At this studio, we go by time. The time now is 10:19. But again, even though the line is closed, Mr. Serge going to give a final message. Why give you his message? I don't want to restrict you. If you have any concern on the community, international, because we are discussing global issues down to the community on a domestic level, feel free to call. I'm going to ask him for excuse to stop, and then you can, give a question. But in exact 10 minutes, we're closing up the studio. So at this time, we're going to give our special guest, Serge Demefack, the chance to give a final word to his community. We know we live here in the diaspora. A lot of Africans are concerned. There are some people in the community sometimes don't have chance to voice out. So we want Brother Serge to give us some ideas in terms of how we can reach our people into the community and how we can bring them to our leaders in our community to speak to them, to get their voice to be heard. So again, thank you so much, audience. It was very nice having you tonight. We'll be turning the mic over to our brother Serge to give a final remark, and right after that, we will be climaxing. But don't go nowhere because there will be some music playing after this show. Thank you so much. Again, let's turn the mic over to Serge. Serge, are you there?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the music. I, I am very involved with immigration issues in the United States. Um, because I work as a community organizer and I work on immigration policies mostly at the state and local level. I also work on things on the national level. But I get the opportunity, I have the opportunity to see the African community, see their struggle, and especially here in the United States, and just see how they're working. And I have the opportunity to look at some data out there about how our community is doing and its capacity to organize as a young community coming to America. Because there's something that we need to acknowledge is that the African community in the United States is a very young community. And that's something that, before we say anything about our community, we need to understand that. And, we're young compared to other communities who came to America. For example, let's say, other European communities who came to America, compared to, let's say, Latino community in America. We know that, after, the shameful slave trade that took place in this country, and that stole many of our brothers, from Africa and brought them to the United States and the Americas in general. It was only, during the late 60s and the early 70s that we saw the first Africans come to America as immigrants, and where they came on their own, where there was no forced migration. So, this is something that we need to understand. And so, which means that when you look at the pecking order of migrants who come to America, Africans are the latest group, the youngest group of immigrants to come to America. And that's something that put us in a position where, we need to do a lot more to stay organized, to understand that, we have a common challenge that we can, work together to do the same, gathering process that many communities who came before us did. For example, when you look at, in terms of organizations of Africans regarding issues, that affecting the larger immigrant population that's in the United States right now, especially Africans. I mean, we need to do a lot more work. We need to do a lot more work to come together, pull resources together, build our own institutions to support, our immigrant communities. And most Africans who are in the U.S., they are recent immigrants. In the second or third generation, the second generation is out there growing, and in some instances, I believe they don't really understand the challenges, that they're facing. even though the challenges are right there, because we don't really have institutions that are built to provide support, you know, to the African community. You know, it's a lot of work. You know, most of us when you come to the United States, you know, we are occupied. We want to have a job. You know, we want to, you know, help people back home and feed our family here, and which means that, you know, we don't really spend a lot of time building our social network, because building social network is something else, and it requires, you know, a lot of focus. It requires the right leaders. It requires time, because every community member needs to put time into building the community. And in our communities, you know, it's not something that the time is not what something that we have, because we work, you know, in odd hours, because and that's what, you know, most Indian communities go through. And so we have certain challenges, and obviously, you know, we need to also to educate ourselves about how America works, because some of us may have stayed here for 20 years, but they still grappling around how to have a successful life in America. It's not necessarily because of their fault. You know, they may have come here with a certain understanding about their culture, but when they come to America, they face something completely new. They have to readjust. You know, even though they're willing to do certain things a certain way, you know, but they may not have the aptitude, they may not have all the capacity, you know. But at the same time, as they organize, they need to preserve their culture, their traditions. So it's a complex process, you know. The idea of the idea of assimilation that's discussed out there, you know, it's not really something that I want to talk very much about, because you know, assimilation basically means that, you know, you forget your culture. But the notion of assimilation is actually a colonialist mentality where, you know, you have to forget everything that, you know, it's part of where you come from, part of who you are. So, you know, to our African brothers, you know, don't be afraid to wear your dashiki and go to work with it. You know, I may be wearing a suit today, but tomorrow when I go to work, you know, I go to work, you know, dressed like an African. You know, that's also who I am. You know, I like to show people that I'm not afraid, that I'm not ashamed of where I come from. You know, it's something that we should be proud of our own culture and show it to people. So I very much, you know, like that. You know, you asked me that question. You know, and for all these reasons, you know, there's a lot of complexity. You know, it's not easy for us to navigate through these different identities that are, you know, affecting us, or maybe that our kids are not even understanding exactly how they are related to. And we need to do a big job in educating our children, African children who are born in the United States, that, you know, their culture goes beyond, you know, the genes that they are wearing on them today, that they belong to a great civilization. And this is something that is up to parents to do that. And if we have institutions who can do that, that will also be very, very helpful. And look, this is not something that's easy. These are things that are very challenging, because, you know, we need to make a conscious effort, build institutions. I'm going to insist that build institutions, build groups that are going to preserve that culture, that's going to propagate that culture. And we know Africa is very diverse, and all those cultures can, you know, all those resources can actually, you know, cohabit together and continue to make Africa, you know, the beacon of the human civilization, and continue to make Africa what has made Africa, you know, so exciting for the imperialists, because they say something very wonderful in Africa and they decide to crush it. But today, you know, Africa need to see the progress they're making. We're building new cities. You know, we're learning to use our money better. You know, we're embracing technology, even though it didn't start with us. You know, especially modern technology. But we have contributed also into building the global civilization. If you go back to some of the ancient knowledge that Africa had, that has been used to develop the economy in the West, you know, a long time ago. But, you know, so we have a place in this world, and many Africans are inventors today. You know, they've been so in the past. They have not been very visible, but they did their part. So we should continue and believing that, you know, we can together, you know, build those institutions, build good families that are, you know, teaching the best values to our children, because our children our future. So I think I'm going to stop here unless you have any specific question for me. But again, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to answer another last question. It was a pleasure.
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, brother Serge. I see a lot of people joining. The show now. I think they're getting too much. I'm kind of interested in listening to you. I hate to cut them off. I mean, right now I don't really have a specific question per se or Serge. I want to say thank you so much for all the contribution. Because I have people joining in the studio and they are listening to you. I guess they are very interested. I don't want to let them go. People continue to join. They stay coming. All right, audience. If you want to ask any question, you are welcome to call. The time now is 10:30. So what I will do for you, because I love my audience. The network we built is for every African, to continue holding up together. So if you have any question, I'm gonna push the time up to 10:45. That'll be the max. We're gonna, climax the show. I understand that you're very interested in listening to Serge tonight. If you have any specific question you want to ask him tonight, you are also welcome to post it, or you can call the studio. The number is right there, 646 220 I will just ask our brother Serge the last question, and that will be a climax of the show. That is 10:45 sharp, because of the audience coming in. Oh, Serge, I want you to tell our community people, especially those, that want for their brothers and sisters to come together, you know what I mean, to bring about love and care into our community, you know what I mean, just uplifting our brothers and sisters. What are some of the mechanisms that we can put in place that will help us, to unite while we live in the diaspora? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very, very important question because I just realized that I talk about building institutions, but I didn't say exactly how do you build those institutions. So thank you for bringing that question back.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Sometimes it starts by just, meeting other family members, right? That's where you start. You don't, you start by at the level of your small neighborhood. If you have a neighbor that you know who's an African like you, try to know that person because that person's story will give you hope. And take your families together, go to a park, start creating your small celebrations. Even if, like, let's say every 4th of July, instead of, just staying at home, find time. If you have a job that allows you to do so, because I know how our African brothers and African sisters don't always have some of the best jobs out there because we are immigrants. So when we come here, we're given the short end of the stick. So we take the jobs that not everybody wants because that's where we start, and try to work our way up. And that's the reality of when you immigrate into a country like America where everybody wants to go up. Obviously, someone who's coming in who may still learn English like I did, you may be taking out small jobs that brings you minimum wage, but that should not stop you from, reaching out to your neighbor. Keep up with those same values that we had before, we left Africa, and continue to meet your brothers, and do those small community meetings. Either it's at your church if you believe in some church, if you have affinity with churches, or at the mosque, because those are places where people are going to meet all the time. And if you don't belong to any particular, those modern religions, if you still belong to your African religions, find other people who still believe in those African religious practices, and also, meet with them. And regardless, religion must not be the only reason why you're meeting people. Meet with other people, if you go, for example, to your children's school, and try to find out, if there are other African parents there. If you see them, try to meet them. And again, these are not easy stuff. You have to work hard to build your own small network of friends. Invite them home. Try to know them. Ask them where they come from. Ask them what brought them to America. And don't be too pugnacious about it because there's something in America. When people meet you, they always want to know everything to you, about you in one single sound bite. No, it doesn't work like that. And we know, that if you really want a long-term friendship, you want to build your own network, it's going to take time. It's going to take time, and that's something that it may not happen organically. You may be lucky here, maybe unlucky there, but it takes time. And also look for existing organizations. For example, organizations, let's say organizations for Africans, for example, in the area where you live. If there's one, if there's none, you can always create one. But also be open to let the door open, to leave the door open for those who are not Africans, who want to just come, who are just curious to know what Africa is like. They may be meeting an African for the first time, and open the door for them as well. Because we come to America, we are embracing America, and we accept to live next to a neighbor who is not African. But we also need to share our culture, because Africa was a great place then, and Africa must continue to remain the great place tomorrow. And it's up to us to show that image of Africa, that we have something unique, we have a unique experience. And these are things that we also need to educate ourselves about the value of about the history of Africa. Because many of us, we come out of Africa without knowing even a lot of our history. And that's something that's very important. So it's something that we need to learn. Even when you're a father, even when you have a job, find a minute to grab a book about the history of your continent. If you hear someone talk about some books, go there, find that book, just flip through it. When you take your child to the library, when you manage to secure that your children are looking at the books, go out there and look for another book that has to do with your own area of interest. It may be about some of the old kingdoms in Africa. Find those books and try to educate yourself about your continent, because we are here in a country where you can find a book about pretty much everything you want. We come from Africa. We know how libraries are rare. And that's just a fact. But and yes, and people, I've seen people use, math book to wrap, puff puff, down in Africa. So, but does that mean that, they didn't know the value of the book? No, they knew the value of the book, but they used something to wrap the puff puff at that moment notice. So again, there's really not like a formula, but you just need to do the right thing. Don't make the first step. Approach the people you see. They may be African, they may not be African. They may live in a place where there are no Africans. You see it live there. You don't have to make friends there. You may teach them an African song. Tell the children stories, that are inspired from your childhood, from Africa. These are things that are valued by the society we live in. Storytelling in America is a big industry, and then just with that alone, we can share, our culture, can share, some of our values, and and regardless of where we are, if you are in the office, hang in your office things that are related to your culture, so people can know more about you. Don't just leave the wall of your office bare like any other office.
That's right.
Just,
That's right.
Even if it's not something big, it may just be a small sculpture right there. It may just be a bracelet that someone offer you. Keep it there. It's your identity. Things that we should do. To really make ourselves feel unique. It doesn't need to be something that's big. You don't need to bring into your office a big pageantry. Or to organize a big party where everyone's going to come for you to really own your culture. And it's important because for us it's a way to stay connected.
But Serge, let me just ask a last question, because that's why we'll conclude on to close the studio. One of my sister inboxed me. She want to know how do we. She believe she is a born Black American, born here. Her name is Ania.
Yeah.
She want to know how do we prevent our negative image from out there, because she believes that the media is throwing a lot of negative image out there, so she really want to know how can we prevent our negative image from out there for the media.
Well, look, there's something very basic, right? Every community or every culture has something that's perceived as bad and something that's perceived as good. Now, it is up to us, to put more of our positive side up there and try to suppress, things that make us, appear, as what you define as a negative image. And again, it's all a matter of perception. Perception is what people sees out there. But how do we fight that perception? We try to control the narrative. We need to, like I said, we need to tell the story. We need to talk about things about us positively too, because very often, we talk about ourselves as, in very derogatory terms, even among ourselves, and sometimes because we are very misinformed about how great Africa was, and how great Africa still is right now. Because for the West to continue to get all the natural resources for Africa, from Africa, we must be a very giving people. And that's, I mean it. To be able to believe that, yes, I'm going to continue to give my resources to this other person, to this other country, to this company, and doing it over and over. You must be someone who's fundamentally believes that, by giving that, you're helping the bigger world. And one of the things also that, we should, like I've said before, we should also develop tools to share our stories. There's the perception that many Africans don't like to read, and I disagree. There are different ways of telling stories, right? So you can tell your story, in a very calm way, or use the media and use the media very, very effectively, or you can tell your story by just sharing it in a very limited circle, and there are some people who are out there occupying the media and they're telling nothing, basically nothing, and they're getting paid for it on top of it. So I would say let's try to find a way to share our stories, the good things that happen in Africa, and share the image of Africa, share things about our culture, because we spend a lot of time just going from work to going to bed, While in the today in the world that's relies a lot on media, people are spending a lot more time talking about things that they're doing on a daily basis, documenting the good things they're doing. Like for example, you will not see many, let's say for example we're talking about Facebook, right? A lot of Africans today have Facebook accounts, but what are they sharing through those Facebook accounts? In many cases, they're sharing, the trivial things in their lives. They may not be sharing about, let's say some of the core things that make them think very fun think about the things that happen in their lives that really shape them the way they are. Sharing beautiful story about where they come from. And not just being an anonymous person. Instead of just sharing like a party that you went to, talk about the story about what that party was about. Don't just show a basic video. Tell the story behind that video. How did you get there? Who did you see there? And really using that just like as the beginning of a conversation, and also creating space for those stories to be shared and being encouraged. Because we know, there are a lot of Africans who are using, in social media in a very compulsory way. Sometimes I ask myself, is social media today helping or hurting Africa? And that's a question, that's a very important question. And you see this sort of like a very intense use of social media, not really got into the way that can really make our message out there very efficient, And again, it's something that's new, but we need to find a way to really control the way social media is portraying us, because sometimes these are images that we are putting out there for ourselves. And I would love to see these social media, designed in a way that we can share stories in it. We can use it better, and having some different apps allowing us to tell stories, to talk about our struggle, to share those stories. But those are, and you cannot understand what I'm talking about here. It becomes like a very professional way of using social media, which is something that we are not being taught how to use it. And so again, you could hear how I'm talking more about a lot of the impact of the the media, and then this new technology into the way we talk about ourselves. So these little tiny steps are going to help us a lot. How do you stay positive when you're using social media instead of using it to bash someone or to criticize the person next to you? And these are things that it's part of the human nature. And so it's a but the key is, let's control the narrative. Let's find ways, channels that we can use to tell our stories, and also confront those who are telling stories that are wrong, and go out there and say, this is wrong. This is the same picture for the same place you just show a picture of. It's not exactly what it appears like. So we should be able to investigate, and debunk some of the lies that are going around the internet and talking about our people, whether it's in Africa or here, because I believe that African people are great people. They they embrace the culture that they come into, to the point of forgetting their own culture. I don't see many cultures who do that, or many communities who do that. But we are very forgiving. So these are values that we have in the core of our human of ourselves, and I believe that we should continue to keep those good things about ourselves, and continue to build our communities, piece by piece. It may take time, but we will get there. I am very certain we will get there. We need to continue to work at it, and starting with your neighbor, looking for other larger groups. You should get to a new city, trying to look for people who look like you, try to look for people who share your beliefs, and talk about your culture, even for people who don't look like you, so that they can understand you better. Don't just hide. We already in America. We can, Africans are a minority in America, very tiny minority, and a new minority. So we need to start making our voice heard, and confronting those who have stories that do not represent us very well, and really say we have a different story. That different story, and tell it to them, and explain why, and show them how warm and how nice of the people we are. Thank you.
Well, that was the voice of Serge. Matter of fact, we say thank you so much for tuning in to the studio tonight. I mean, it was a pleasure having you, and I know the audience, they heard you very loud and clear. And we hope you just engage the stage all the time. Sometime, whenever you have a time, there's a platform. You want to speak to your people anytime, you are welcome, to call this platform all the time to just, speak to your people, because I really believe they want to listen to you more often. So, Serge, we say again, thank you so much, and we want you to have a very wonderful night. Thank you, and thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It's a beginning. Doing my best. Trying to provide the information that our community can use. I'm using my own experience. We don't read these things in books. It's based on our experience. And I believe everybody has an experience, and we should all share it. To build ourselves up. So I know it's a pleasure joining. You here. And you have a good initiatives, and all our brothers need to support you and come to, your channel to share their stories, and spread the message of peace, of unity, and to build our community in the United States. It's not easy, but everything starts, every long travel starts with one step, and I think we've gone beyond that one step. Thank you.
Thank you so much, brother. I mean, that's why it's all about, bringing our African tradition to the diaspora. Let's unite. It's all about African connection. Serge, you did a wonderful job tonight. I mean, it was very, very, very clear. You're very transparent, to speak on the global affairs, that affecting our community down to the domestic and international. You outlined it very well. And I believe the audience will want you to come back here anytime soon to kind of like give them more insight, so that they get intuitionalize, sense from out of it, and in terms of how we want our community to come together. So, Serge, thank you so much. But folks, do not go anywhere, because right after this break, you're going to be hearing some sweet music, and at which time we'll be climaxing. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for the break, and right after it, you will have some music. Thank you.
you, baby.
She fell in love with Denji. Got a thing for Denji. Baby down with Denji. Denjo. She fell in love with Denji. Got a thing for Denji. Baby down with Denji. All over the world, she never said no one do it like Denji. All over the world, she never said no one do it like Denji. Did you dance better enough? Oh yeah. One time she saw me one time. Saw me on stage, I kill it one time. Saw me on TV, I rap it one time. My freestyle made the whole place went wild. Second time she saw me online. Hit me in back, I hit her right back. Came to the crib, I hit it one time. Since that time she got me locked down. Now the way her love is using me got me feeling things I never felt before. She tattooed my name right on her body. Said I'm her favorite boy. Oh, I'm her favorite boy. She never said no one do it like Denji. Baby, all over the world. She never said no one do it like Denji. Did you dance better enough? Oh yeah. Baby, I put her juice in the Afro beats. Yeah. She fell in love with the dancer tunes. Yeah. I made her drink, she get hangover. She on speed like Range Rover. She like Liberia and cassava. She said, give me that funky flow.